All right, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, my fellow trash talkers, whatever time you are tuning in. I'm glad to have you on board. Once again, you're listening to Trash Talk with D. Bork, and I'm your host, Dave Bork. It is Wednesday, the 1st of October, 2025. This is episode number 67 of our NFL pod. We're going to be running through all things Week 4 NFL action, as well as some big games coming up in Week 5, particularly the NFC West rivalry to start us off on Thursday night footy between the Rams and the 49ers. We know Shanahan has his edge over Sean McVay, but I don't think that's going to be the case this time round. As well as running through all things Week 4, we're going to take out some trash because I may be wearing our jersey, but that's it. We are a disgrace right now in Tennessee. This is not the way things were meant to start this season. It's tough. It's tough viewing. After that, we'll run through some question time and then talk all things Week 5. We'll run through best bets as well. Went 2-3 on the week. So not amazing, but still, it's a long season. It's a marathon, not a sprint. We did get a winner on that doubleheader of Monday Night Footy with the Miami and the Jets game. The overlapping stuff just simply needs to stop. Before I do start, though, as is always the case, you can find this episode on YouTube, Trash Talk with D. Bork, or Spotify and Apple. Like and subscribe, do whatever you got to do. I appreciate the support well and truly in advance. All right, let's start. Week 4, Thursday Night Footy, the Seattle Seahawks winning that one against the Arizona Cardinals 23-20, an absolute bizarre game of footy. Seattle were kind of in cruise control against Arizona before Arizona kind of made that late run. We know Jason Myers missed a field goal, which pretty much would have wrapped things up, but then decided to win the game from 52 yards as well at the same time. So he was big time for him, as is always the case with kickers. You either love them or you hate them as part of your team. Some people don't think they are a part of the football team in general, but clearly when you need them to win you a game, you need a good one, and Jason Myers is just that. And look, it wasn't pretty for Seattle, but they do move on to 3-1. Sammy Darnold, 18-26 for 242 and a touchdown. Kenneth Walker, very, very busy on the ground once again, 19 carries for 81, but he continues to get snaked at the goal line by Zach Charbonnet. I don't know why. Kenny Walker gets him all the way down there and they shift him off and go with Charbonnet. It kills me as someone who has Kenneth Walker in their fantasy lineup, so it's tough to watch. It is. But, Mike McDonald has a different view compared to my fantasy team, clearly. Sammy Darnold figured out that he had JSN on his lineup because you looked at this thing at halftime, he had a catch for about 8 yards. It was really weird. Went 4 for 79 in the end in the second half, especially that late bomb to kind of help win Seattle this ball game. Other side of the fence, Kyler Murray is still on struggle street, and I know Arizona might have a bit of a decent record or whatever, but they don't look good. Marvin Harrison Jr. finally had his best game that he's had all season long, 6 for 66 and a touchdown as well. But they kind of need that on the regular, especially without having James Conner in their lineup now. They kind of have that running back by committee. Trey Benson or DeMarcado kind of coming through. Kyler Murray loves to take off as well. He had 27 of 41 for 200. 2 touchdowns, yes, nice, especially one to Marvin Harrison Jr. But threw 2 picks, got sacked 6 times as well. The Seattle defense is very, very strong. Mike McDonald's always centered himself around that. And now I feel like they've got a very, very capable quarterback in Sam Darnold, who played very well for Minnesota last season. If you look at things in Las Vegas right now with Geno Smith, it's not all that pretty. So I think they've definitely made the right call. They got a huge game coming up in Week 5 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Arizona go on to face Tennessee. Yeah, well done. We had a game over in Dublin. We liked the Minnesota Vikings in this one, but they did not like us. Lost that one 24-21. They held off a late Minnesota rally, if anything. Obviously scored with about 3 to go and then got a stop. We'll talk about that stop a little later. It's probably going to end up in the trash, let's be honest, because my views on Mike Tomlin and that situation wasn't very good. Aaron Rodgers, I want to say clinical, 18-22 for 200 and a touchdown. Kenneth Gainwell, if anything, was probably their biggest piece of the lot, especially without Jaylen Warren in their lineup. I don't think Gainwell's ever had this kind of burn in his NFL career, obviously being the backup at Philly for quite some time. In all their teams have had, obviously, he was backup to Miles Sanders, and then obviously backup to Saquon Barkley, played a very good role in that as a third down back, but he was their lead back in this one against Minnesota, almost went for 102 touchdowns. DK Metcalf, 80-yard bomb from Aaron Rodgers too. That was very, very nice. He had 5 catches on the day for 126. Justin Jefferson matched that, but double the output. 10 catches for 126, but no touchdowns. Carson Wentz did get hacked in the backfield, and this is something that Pittsburgh haven't done well all season long, but they managed to get it right this time around. He finishes 30 of 46 for 350, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, but the biggest thing, 6 sacks. So it was playing behind the chains a lot, and obviously late in the piece, in that late little rally that they had, how they managed to get the ball back to finish that game in the first place is a complete Mike Tomlin cluster, you know what. He's just an old school coach. And they continue to get away with things in Pittsburgh. They're now 3-1. They do have an early bye though. Week 5 bye. So with an aging roster, this is going to be interesting to see how they play things out to finish the season. Minnesota stay overseas. They now go to London and face the Cleveland Browns. You've got to win that game. It's as simple as that. I know you're playing with a backup quarterback in Wentz, but you know your body clock's adjusted now. Cleveland's coming over, getting whacked by Detroit. I understand their D-line's going to be very, very good and coming after Carson Wentz, but they've got to be able to adjust to that, Minnesota. Clocks are forward over there. Atlanta, Washington. Atlanta winning that one 34-27. Probably looked a little bit closer than what it was. I think Atlanta got ahead of him a little bit here. Unfortunately, the Mariota revenge tour was over in the second week, but he didn't play that bad. He also wasn't that good. But Penix was a little bit better this week, especially in comparison to how things went against the Carolina Panthers. It was bad. But he was clinical on a lot of big third down conversions. They had him on third and mediums a lot for a chance to get him off the field, and he continued to convert, whether it be to Drake London or whether it be to Bijan. They managed to get it going. Even Kyle Pitts is getting a lot of catches this year. It's getting a lot of fantasy owners very, very happy. And if things continue in that fate, then he's probably a better tight end than anyone I've got on my roster right now. Michael Penix, 20 of 26 for 313, 2 touchdowns and a pick. But they were extremely dominant on the ground. Between Bijan and Tyler Algier, combined for 2 touchdowns and rushed all the way through him. Drake London and Bijan almost went for 200 plus through the air. Touchdown as well to Drake. And Kyle Pitts had himself a touchdown too. So he's having quite the year. 5 for 70 himself. Mariota ended up finishing 16 of 27, 156 and 2 touchdowns. Did throw a pick. Only had 20 on the ground, which for him probably isn't enough, especially considering that they've got a lot of injuries at running back. They're playing with second, third stringers right now. So Washington have some injury concerns, and I think once they get through this Week 5 matchup against the Chargers, which is a massive, massive game, I still don't think you need to be rushing Jaden Daniels back. If you drop this one, so be it. But again, we've said it before, this is Week 5. It's an 18-week season. It is an absolute marathon. Do not rush your guys back early on. They had a chance to win this game. They could have won this game easily. And, you know, you're looking at 2-0 with Mariota. I think you're taking that for sure. And you're definitely resting Jaden Daniels in this one coming up. Market probably suggests that Jaden Daniels is going to be back. I don't think he needs to be. The Atlanta Falcons, though, they got a bye. So an early season bye for them, Week 5. Again, I don't think a lot of teams are too happy with an early bye themselves, but they've got a massive game against the Buffalo Bills in Week 6. So they'll be well rested for that one. And it's probably Buffalo's toughest test to date, which shows you how soft, I guess, their schedule has been. You know, with this discounting Week 1 against the Baltimore Ravens because it just feels like it was forever ago. Their schedule is ridiculous. Philadelphia at Tampa Bay, winning that one 31-25. Whatever alt spread you took potentially late in that game, that, you know, safety does you some favours for sure. But you never count out Baker Mayfield because they were trailing big in this game, and he makes a late run there to make this thing very interesting. Had the ball down 8 inside the red zone and threw a very, very bad pick on first down as well, which was kind of rare from him, especially once Tampa kind of get into any kind of rhythm or in a zone. You're counting on Baker Mayfield to finish that drive off and score you a touchdown because understandably didn't have Mike Evans, but Chris Godwin made his return in this one, which was big time for them, and I think he's going to continue to work his way into that rotation as long as he stays healthy. And Emeka Egbuka is just an absolute superstar right now. He's a stud, probably favourite to win Rookie of the Year. I know Jackson Dart is making his case now after he won in the first week, and winning any game for the New York Giants is probably a big thing. But Emeka had another 100-yard game, 1 touchdown. Obviously, 77 of those was that bomb from Baker Mayfield. But they had their chances to win this game, Tampa. And I mentioned it last week how incredibly good their defensive line is, that they've just continued to stifle absolutely everyone on the ground. And if you were ever going to probably struggle to do that, it was going to be up against Philadelphia with having Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. Hurts probably got a lot of those yards. He had 62 on the ground on 9 carries, so that's a very good clip. But Saquon kind of continues his semi-average season. 19 carries for 43. 1 touchdown there for him. It was just, 2 turnovers being the difference. That Baker pick, which was extremely bad, and then obviously Bucky Irving had one earlier on in the piece, lost a fumble there. But he had a huge game himself, which kind of sucked. 63 on the ground, 5 for 102 through the air, and a touchdown for him as well. So Bucky Irving's just continued to show that a lot of people thought it was always going to be Rashad White, but as soon as Bucky kind of came into this team, he's clearly the guy. He needs the RB1 by a long, long way right now. And I think Tampa Bay is going to be just fine. I still think they win this division pretty comfortably, and they're not a team that you're going to want to be facing when they are truly healthy. Offensively, they've got weapons galore, obviously Mike Evans, Godwin, Egbuka. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they're not letting anyone run on them. They've got to shore up that secondary. That's about the only thing that is hurting them. And I thought Jalen Hurts would have attacked it. He did somewhat in the first half, but only finished with 130 and 2 touchdowns. So you look at those numbers, and those 2 touchdowns are kind of a bit trash when they were, scoop balls to Dallas Goedert. So, as a game itself, Philadelphia shouldn't be winning this game, but it's turnovers that cost Tampa Bay in the end. AJ Brown sent out a little cryptic tweet kind of late in the game saying that, he's obviously not happy with the way things are going, but he did get a lot of targets. So the tweet is pretty interesting in itself. He got targeted 8 or 9 times, I believe it was, for 2 catches. So it wasn't like Jalen Hurts wasn't looking at him at all. He's just, I guess, unhappy with his production. He only finished with about 8 yards on the night. But look, AJ, if you want to come back to Tennessee, we will truly welcome you back through the doors with open arms, because we'll give him Calvin Ridley if they want at this point. It seems like a fair trade, given that we gave up AJ Brown for absolutely nothing a few years back, right? Wishful thinking. Philadelphia play host to the Denver Broncos in Week 5. Tampa Bay travel to the Seattle Seahawks. That's going to be a big one. That's a belter. That's arguably one of the games of the weekend for sure. The Chargers up against the Giants. This was talked about throughout the entire week, that Jackson Dart getting his first start against a very, very good Los Angeles Chargers team, a team that came in undefeated. But welcome to the big show, Jackson, because they came after you, but you came after them on the opening drive. And if anything, there was movie scripted for him to finish that opening drive with a rushing touchdown. We know how good this kid was in college, and I think things are still going to take time in the NFL, but you're taking a win in your first start every day of the week, no matter how good or bad it looks. He finishes 13 to 20 for 111 and a touchdown, got sacked 5 times, did have 54 rushing yards. So I've seen worse starts, especially come away with a win at the same time, but the biggest story of the lot here is losing Malik Neighbors for the season with a torn ACL, likely to be out for stages potentially next season, depending how the recovery goes. So that does suck. And it sucked the life out of this stadium, because things were going so well for the Giants. They're winning the ball game. Everyone's super, super happy, and you see that happen to Malik Neighbors, and it's devastating, because you feel like he kind of finally had himself a young quarterback who for a fact was going to target Malik Neighbors heavily, and now he's going to be out for the year. So definitely a tough one for the Giants, but I think they lean pretty heavily on Cam Scatterboo now, who is a cult figure in the Big Blue, and he's extremely lovable. And they've got one more win than the Titans, so you can't really hate on them too much. They limited Herbert a lot in this one, which was concerning to say the least, because I thought Herbert would have a field day, as good as what that D-line is for the Giants. The Chargers have been able to protect him pretty well, but losing Joe Alt was a big one for this team. So Herbert went 23 of 41 for 203, a touchdown and 2 picks. So I think they'll rue this one for quite some time, because now, especially with Kansas City semi starting to come good, people have forgot how bad they were for the first 2 weeks. They should be 4-0 going into week 5. They probably maybe overthought this game a little bit. You can call it an early kickoff all you want, that their body clocks weren't adjusted to it. They're professional athletes right now. They would have been ready. These are guys that played all through college in earlier starts. East Coast, West Coast, doesn't matter. So that's a bad loss for them. But outside of obviously Malik Neighbours going down, I think there's a little bit of a concern around Ladd McConkey, who was super productive last year, but he's had a very, very slow start to this season. I know there's plenty out there in the fantasy world that kind of took him early enough. And whether or not it's Keenan Allen coming back into this lineup that have hurt his production, but it's hurt it a lot. And he was extremely unsighted in this one. He only had 1 catch for 11 yards. And against the Giants, who semi-struggle against very, very good slot receivers, it was weird. So it'll be one to watch this week against Washington. Obviously, Penix had his way against them last week, so I think the Chargers want to get back on track, especially at home. The Giants now travel to New Orleans, which is the game I think we all thought that Jackson Dart was going to get his first start in. Now it's his second start. They're slight outsiders to the Saints, who, look, I know they're winless, but they play hard. They almost knocked off Buffalo, and I've said it time and time again, Buffalo are bored. But they, outside of a Brandon Cooks drop, were arguably the better team throughout that entire game. Be pretty stiff if Spencer Rattler does get dropped anytime soon. Be tough. The Rams, 27-20 against the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know if I was wrong about this Colts team at the start of the season. You think of it, Daniel Jones going head-to-head against Anthony Richardson to get that QB1 spot, and you think how bad AR-15 is. And as of right now, he ain't getting his spot back because DJ's having quite the season, and he's this year's Sammy Darnold at the end of the day. But unfortunately, they did not come away with a win. Good for us, though. We're obviously on the Rams minus the 3.5, so that late Tutu Atwell touchdown was very, very nice. Matty Stafford, 29 of 41 for 375 and 3 touchdowns. He is putting up some serious numbers, and it helps when he's got the likes of Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. Nacua was enormous, obviously career high, 13 catches for 170 and a touchdown. Kyron Williams was busy. He was in our Sunday Funday player prop parlay. Unfortunately, Jared Goff letting us down there, which is weird. 13 for 77 for Kyron Williams. He'd be wanting a little bit more, but that's good yardage, especially when Stafford's throwing for 375. But I think Puka Nacua is arguably becoming one of the best wide receivers in the league, and the duo themselves of Nacua and Devontae Adams. Devontae's not someone who's going to want those kind of numbers anymore like what he was getting when he was playing with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. Nacua is clearly the guy and has been super productive, but Devontae Adams is getting targeted heavily in the red zone. And at the end of the day, he just wants touchdowns. And if he's able to get 4 to 5 catches prior to that and a touchdown, I think that's going to keep him pretty happy. And this is someone that wants to win a Super Bowl. This is a team that's very, very capable of winning a Super Bowl. They should have beat the Philadelphia Eagles. They should still be undefeated. And if we're all betting people out there, I'd be looking at this Rams team pretty seriously, especially if they, take care of business on Thursday night footy against the San Francisco 49ers, which is, they should do. DJ, 24 of 33, 262, a touchdown, but 2 picks for him. So it's all ball security. And similar to, I guess, what we said about Baker Mayfield, if they don't turn the ball over, they win. If Indy don't, they win. And we're going to talk about this game in a little more detail coming up in our trash bowl. And we know who's going in it. My one pet hate of guys who continue to drop the ball prior to the end zone. It's so stupid. Kansas City 37-20 against the Baltimore Ravens. Look, Baltimore, this is concerning for them, especially now with Lamar Jackson getting injured. I guess he's done his hamstring. So, and someone like Lamar uses his legs a whole lot, so they need him to be healthy. He could be missing some time. They're very, very lucky that their schedule coming up, albeit a little bit on the tougher side, but no divisional matches. So they could potentially go 0-3 in this stretch if he doesn't play in any of the next three, we'll call it that. But then they run the table in their division, they win the division, they still make the playoffs. I'm not going to be one of facing this Baltimore Ravens team when they get healthy. Because as of right now, defensively, ravaged. One of the Marlon Humphrey, big out. Got a couple of big bodies on their D-line who are out. Obviously, Lamar Jackson now out. They're not getting good enough production from their wide receivers. Zay Flowers had a decent game, but albeit nothing numbers in the end. And now you bring in Cooper Rush. I know you brought him across from Dallas, but he is the complete opposite of Lamar Jackson. He was good in Dallas because he was similar enough to Dak that he could be that pocket passer. But now, if you're Baltimore, you've got to rely heavily on the run. Derrick Henry's got to come to the party because he got shut down in this game. And that's what Kansas City do to just about every running back that they've come up against, other than Cam Scatterbo for the Giants. Still won that game pretty easily, but he was good for him. But on the Kansas City side of the ball, I think a lot of them being dead and overreactions or whatever are gone because, they get Xavier Worthy back in this one. He goes off for 80. Also had almost 40 on the ground too. He's a very good gadget guy that can get you on the ground or get you through the air because his quickness is off the charts. Mahomes probably had his game of the season that he hasn't had yet. 25 of 37 for 274 touchdowns. Does move them into 2-2. They get a massive Monday Night Football game coming up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Never thought you'd be saying that. Big Monday Night footy game against the Jags, the 3-1 Jags. It's a chance for either team, I guess, to win 3 straight. Obviously, the Chiefs winning their last 2. But the Jags survived against San Fran, winning that one 26-21. The Ravens are now 1-3. They face the Houston Texans this week. Actually, slight outsiders now, which does give you the test that Lamar Jackson is out. So, it's a tough one. Excuse me. Bears and the Jags, like we said, survived. Chicago very, very lucky in this one. Geno, turnover after turnover after turnover. His nightmare season is continuing. It's not looking good. It's looking very good for Seattle because they made the right call by moving him on. Vegas need to get it right. They finally had that Ashton Genty game, which we spoke about on socials at Trash Talker D-Bork on Insta and TikTok, that he was going to have a breakout game against the Bears, and he did. Just about everyone's having breakout games against the Bears on the ground. So that'll be one that we'll be targeting a lot in the player prop department. But, Vegas getting a game-winning field goal, blocked. Seen so many of that in the last few weeks. Special teams got to get things right on all fronts. Sunday Night Football game this week was interesting to say the least. I'll touch on it now and touch on it a little bit later on in our trash. But 40 apiece. Green Bay, Dallas. Jordan Love, 31 of 43 for 337 and 3 touchdowns. They were dominant on the ground. Both Josh Jacobs and Wilson. But they couldn't stop this Dallas offense. And the way the game started with Green Bay scoring those 2 touchdowns, got up 13-0, then all of a sudden had a point after attempt blocked again and took it to the house, which only made it 13-2, but I don't know, gave Dallas some life. And then they just kept on going back and forth. And, Dak, 31 of 40 for 319, 3 touchdowns. They didn't have CeeDee Lamb, but it didn't worry him because Georgie Pickens just comes out of nowhere. Probably had the game of his career. 8 for 134 and 2 touchdowns. Javonte Williams was running through Green Bay as well. Detroit couldn't get any running game going in week 1, but Javonte Williams is going for 85. Where'd that come from? The bigger talk is what happened late in the game, and I'll hit on that in a bit. But a very intriguing game to say the least, and entertaining at best. If you had a lot of those players in your fantasy lineup, Ferguson, come on, man, needed more than that. We were buried on our Sunday Night Football player prop parlay with him 45 plus receiving yards. He went for 40. That was tough. Double header on Monday Night Footy. This is kind of the perfect way, I guess, that we can bring in the trash, because the NFL need to scrap this. And for everyone who says, oh, but there's so many early games on the Monday morning for us at 3 a.m., 6 a.m. and all that here in Sydney, you've got Red Zone that'll have you covered. There is no Red Zone for a doubleheader in Monday Night Football. So unless you've got 2 TVs or a laptop and a TV set up, you simply can't watch both games at the same time. You see a little scoreboard pop up in the corner and saying, oh, there's a touchdown, or they'll give you an update for it. It sucks. Well, these games were bad in the end anyway. You got the Jets and Miami and Denver Cincy, but boy, it sucked. I can't make any sense of it. It's shit. They need to scrap it, because you look at the schedule later in the season, and these primetime games where they do have the doubleheader, one starts 3 hours earlier, the other one's after. So if there's a tiny bit of an overlap, I think we'll cop that. But when there's a 1 hour overlap or 45 minutes or whatever that was, unwatchable. It sucked. It also sucked for Miami. They lost Tyreek Hill for the season. That's a big, big blow to this offense that was already struggling. Tough one. Tough blow for Tyreek Hill. But he looked happy going into the ambulance, which was really strange. All right, we'll continue into our trash bowl. That was the start of it, I guess, with the doubleheader at the Monday Night Footy. We go to A.D. Mitchell, fumbling the ball into the end zone. What are you doing? So many times you'll see wide receivers celebrating before they get into the end zone, putting the ball out, and all of a sudden just fumble the ball through or drop the ball short of the end zone, thinking they've already scored. It's like I've said it so many times, there's a competition of how short you can be just to get into the end zone by an inch to break the plane. Run the thing into the tunnel and throw the ball into the crowd. Or flick the ball off onto the freaking wall. Who cares? Run the thing into the end zone. It still counts for 6. What is the point of show ponying before you get into the end zone? Ball rolls out of the end zone, it's the other team's ball, you lose the game. He made a mistake later in the piece too, a big penalty, that hurt him. Just so dumb. He's going to cop it for quite some time. He's only a young fella. He was battling for snaps. They're just things that you can't do. They were in a position to go 4-0. They're now 3-1. Who knows? Could that be their turning point? Tennessee, yep, I'm putting us in. It's bad. As long as we continue with our offensive line issues, it's a disaster. And there's people out there that are like, oh, Will Levis had a stronger first 4 games than Cam Ward had. He also had Derrick Henry playing with him. Cam Ward doesn't have that. When Cam Ward's constantly getting sacked 5 or 6 times a game, he's got no time to throw the ball. He's had some big drops from some receivers, and he's made some questionable decisions. He's a rookie at the end of the day, number 1 pick. Everyone calling him a bust all they want. He's playing for one of the worst teams in football. And for me to say that, it's tough because I'm an extremely big Tennessee Titans fan. But being without guys like JC Latham has definitely hurt us for sure, because you need to give Cam as much time as possible. But also at the same time, when his best receiver is Calvin Ridley, I know Ayomanor has been good for him too. He's a rookie. Chiggy's still young. Tony Pollard will give you something, but we've got to be in the game for him to continue to run through him. It's a extremely tough watch, and from a coaching standpoint as well, we're a bad enough team right now that it's irrelevant if the game's 3-0, 6-0, 10-0. If it's 4th and 5 or 4th and 8 or whatever, and you're midfield or on their 40, what's the point of kicking a 50-plus yard field goal if our kicker can't kick in the first place? I'm over here watching Nick Folk still banging from close to 60 in Monday Night Footy, and we've got old mate Sly that can't kick to kind of save his life. Should be out of a job by now. But, yeah, we'll challenge our offense to complete a 4th down, keep the drive going, because who cares if we lose 42-0 or 26-0? Keep the offense on the field. Challenge them. Work on something. I know everyone's like, Callahan's probably going to be out of a job, and he probably will be, but we got nothing going for us right now. From the top of the office to the field. It's ugly. Spoke about it for clock management in this Green Bay-Dallas game. Complete and utter disaster. Jordan Love almost cost his team the draw. But the worst thing is they actually played for it because they didn't want to give Dallas the opportunity to get the ball back. If they got that playoff a little bit earlier, still could have picked up a first down and go out and win the game, not just tie the game. Like, that could hurt them late in the season. They're lucky that there was still a second left on the clock to go out and kick a field goal on the buzzer to tie this thing up at 40. But that was bad from Jordan Love. Like, he had a shocker there. That's a bad result. Could hurt. Remember when everyone said Detroit were gone? They're now favourites to win that division. Last but not least, actually, I said the overlapping primetime games before. I don't need to say much more than that. But I want to hit on Mike Tomlin. There are so many people that preach this man as one of the greatest coaches of all time. And I get it. He gets his teams to the playoffs. That should never get there. But at the end of the day, he and I guess the front office continue to get these aging quarterbacks, guys like Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, that are just going to be good enough to get you to the playoffs, but you are simply just making up the numbers. As bad as what Tennessee are right now, I would rather be in our position than their position. Because congratulations, you made the playoffs, you're out in week 1, you're going to be drafting mid to late first round. What's the point of that? But not only that, he's that old of a coach right now that on 4th and inches, he decided to punt the ball, take a delay of game, and allow Carson Wentz to then have a chance to either drive down the field and win the game or tie the game. Still had like a minute, I guess, no timeouts. It doesn't matter in this day and age in the NFL. How you don't trust Kenneth Gainwell, who has absolutely shredded the Minnesota defense, to pick up a first down, pick up an inch or half a yard, whatever it was, and it's game over. You don't have to worry about putting your defense back on. If he doesn't pick it up, he doesn't pick it up. I'm going to take my chances with someone that has completely destroyed this defense all game long to pick up a yard. And you've got Aaron Rodgers, this guy that you've brought across as the savior to go out and win it. So if you don't want to run the ball, I'm sure he can throw for a yard. But the decision there to kick that ball and allow Minnesota a chance to come down and still win that game or tie that game, so bad. So bad. All right, let's go now to question time at Trash Talk with D-Borg on Insta and TikTok. We had a question that's come through from at Jimmy Moore. He's got a couple. Is Rome Odunze the permanent wide receiver 1 in Chicago, or is this just a phase? I hope it's just a phase, but it seems like he is the guy right now. I thought it was going to be DJ Moore year in and year out. They paid DJ Moore a lot of money to hang around in Chicago, and as of right now, he's happy just picking up a couple of catches a night, maybe using him as a gadget guy in the backfield. It's laughable, but it seems like they've gone with Odunze as their number 1 guy. So it's a weird one, but that's the way Chicago want to go. It's the way Ben Johnson wants to go. I hope it does flip and DJ Moore has his games that decide to still win me some fantasy games. It wouldn't hurt. It also wouldn't hurt Chicago because DJ Moore, in my opinion, is still a better player than Rome is. I know Rome might be better in the red zone. He's a bigger body, but DJ Moore still gives them so much, but Caleb Williams just inept from actually getting him the ball. And is Marks the new RB1 in Houston, having to overtake Nick Chubb? I don't think that's the worst play. He obviously popped off against Tennessee late in the piece, used him a little bit in that Tampa Bay game as well. Their running back situation there isn't all that. Their offensive line's got plenty of issues. I wouldn't even be targeting that if you're looking to go after Marks, but they can't protect CJ Stroud, so it's not going to give him a whole lot of running room in the first place. He might be the RB1, given Nick Chubb's history with injuries, but good luck to you if you want to pick him up. Who wants my advice anyway? You don't want my advice when it comes to freaking fantasy footy, especially this season. All right, but I appreciate you following through. At Eric G86, who's the most shocking downgrade from last season? He had takes on it being Cincinnati. Hard to say, Cincy, just given obviously Joey B getting injured, but I'll say this with Cincy. if you're not picking up your phone and calling, whether it's the Giants, whether it's even Miami with Zach Wilson, the Giants have two quarterbacks in Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston just simply sitting there doing nothing. Zach Wilson as a backup to Tua also isn't the worst thing, and being in a new environment would help him. Played well in the preseason too. They can't keep going throughout this entire season with Jake Browning. No way. They can't. It's a complete waste of time. You've gone out and franchise tagged T. Higgins, paid Jamar Chase a lot of money, Chase Brown. This would be a complete disaster if they go with this guy for another 2 to 3 months with Joe Burrow out injured and probably go winless at this rate. They don't look like they're going to be beating anyone. Again, how on earth they beat Jacksonville, I have no idea. That was a disaster from the Jags. But you watch that game on Monday night, getting blown out by Denver, and Denver was probably a good player. They should have played that. But 28-3, that was never even close. Jamar Chase only had 25 yards. He's far. I know Denver have a great secondary, obviously, in Pat Surtain, but honestly, you give Jamar Chase a chance at one-on-one against anyone, it's regardless of who it is, throw him the damn ball, man. Their offensive line's a complete disaster. I would rather have Jameis Winston in that spot, and at least he's every chance of throwing you 5 touchdowns or throwing 5 picks, but it's going to be entertaining to watch regardless. Their offense is far too good for them to be going with Browning for the rest of the season. So I get it, since he is, definitely a downgrade. It's not really shocking, just given, Burrow was injured. I could be biased here in saying that Tennessee has definitely been a downgrade. Maybe it's no shock to anyone, but I had them in for, at the very least, a win by now, and they don't look anything close to it. It is bad. You could say Baltimore because, they blew that lead against Buffalo and now got the doors blown off them in Kansas City. They've been pretty bad to start the season at 1-3. So, but they too have also been dealing with plenty of injuries as well at the same time. Maybe a shocking downgrade to Miami. I'm not shocked by it, but they're not playing good footy, and now they've got no Tyreek Hill. Tua definitely hasn't been playing well whatsoever, so he's definitely been a downgrade, and if they continue to not play well, then maybe they could be looking at picking up a quarterback to start next season and being done with Tua, because it's not working in Miami. Yeah, it's a tough one, a month into the season. I'll touch on that one maybe 2 months in. Finally, at Young_Gab. Very funny, Gab. Who are Tennessee taking at 1 next year? We don't need a quarterback, so there's every chance our phone's going to be ringing. There's going to be plenty that are up there. Obviously, John Mateer is the one kind of high on everyone's board right now. Arch Manning was, but hasn't really been playing all that well to go number 1 next season. But I dare say we'll be trading down, because we'll need to be picking up an offensive lineman to protect Cam Ward, whether it's a receiver. We're not going to be picking one, even if we are technically picking one. I'd be very surprised. Stanford tree robbed. Yeah, Gab had a question in regards to a lot of college mascots and believed the Stanford tree deserved to be in there. Puddles is clear number 1. Just knocked off Penn State in Penn State. How's your whiteout going? All right, appreciate the questions as always, team. Let's go now to our Week 5 preview. Thursday night footy, 49ers, Rams. Said it before that Shanahan has an edge on Sean McVay. I don't get it. I don't get why, but they have so many injuries right now in San Fran that if McVay cannot get this done on Thursday night footy, then it is a complete... That'll be a shock. That's a downgrade if anything. That'll be a complete shock. Going back to Eric, I'll put Houston in that pile. They've been terrible. But the Rams need this one. They somewhat got lucky against the Colts, obviously, with Mitchell dropping that ball through the end zone. Danny Dimes threw a couple of picks too. The Colts weren't at their best, but you stuff CMC in this game. Brock Purdy's already playing on a bad leg, bad ankle, bad knee, whatever it is. It's not good. Their wide receivers are really banged up right now. This is a chance for the Rams to win this thing by 2 touchdowns. And they should. -6.5 doesn't seem like enough. Could be a play. But yeah, having Puka Nakua and Devontae Adams going up against that 49ers lineup, good luck to them, because this should be all Rams. And I know the Niners usually have this as a home away from home game, but this just has to be the Rams winning this game by quite comfortably. Anyway, we've got a game over in London. Like we said before, Minnesota playing the Cleveland Browns. Yeah, Minnesota hurt themselves, obviously, turned the ball over a lot against Pittsburgh. Again, Pittsburgh just seem like they're the luckiest team right now. They're winning games on the back of turnovers. Bad turnovers at that. They're barely even forcing any of them. So this is a game that the Vikings have to win. You've been over there now for 2 weeks. Cleveland, or most people from Cleveland, don't leave Cleveland. So the Vikings are going to be very well supported here in London. They've almost become the UK's team in a way, playing over there for back-to-back weeks. And Justin Jefferson needs to attack this secondary. Last week, we had Jared Goff in our Sunday Fun Day because Cleveland's defensive line, with Myles Garrett and the rest, have stuffed everyone on the ground. Jahmyr Gibbs had himself a good game. Monty did not. Minnesota, Jordan Mason wasn't great against Pittsburgh, so this one has to fall on Carson Wentz to make plays. And now he has Jordan Addison back in that lineup as well, with TJ Hawkinson, who's obviously getting used a lot more, and Justin Jefferson. I think this is it here for Minnesota, because they have a brutal stretch coming up. After this week, they've got a bye. Obviously playing 2 games abroad, they've got a week 6 bye. After that, it's Philadelphia, at the Chargers, at the Lions, Baltimore. It's now or never. This game just simply has to be a win and needs to be a cruisy win at that. Speaking of Baltimore, they host Houston this week. Like I said, seems like no Lamar Jackson, and this just has to be all King Henry. And Derrick Henry, when he was playing for the Titans, used to love running right through the Houston Texans. They need him to do just that. They need to control possession. And Cooper Rush is someone who has shown that he can be a capable backup. Obviously, almost knocked off the Bengals on the Simpsons game last year on national TV. I actually watched Cooper Rush play up against the Rams, actually, at SoFi. And Cooper Rush and Dallas actually got that win. So he's not exactly the worst backup quarterback. He's just extremely different to what Baltimore usually bring to the party with Lamar Jackson. So I don't think this is going to be a game that's going to have plenty of offense, as bad as what Baltimore's defense has been. As we said with Houston last week, if they were ever going to get going, it was going to be against Tennessee, because our defense is horrific. And the scoreboard might tell you it was 26-zip, but a lot of those points came late. Like, they were kicking field goals for the entirety of the first half and a lot of the third quarter before they scored a couple of late touchdowns. So I have zero confidence in the world in Houston. I'd almost be siding with Baltimore. If you can get plus money on Baltimore as of right now, and it's probably going to be even juicier close to the game day, I'd be waiting on that. But that could potentially be a play here with Cooper Rush at quarterback, because Houston right now offensively just don't really seem to have it. Denver at Philadelphia, probably the game of the morning. It's not the best slate this week, but Denver should be well enough rested. They weren't amazing against Cincy, but they cruised. And this Philadelphia Eagles team continue not to light the world alight as of right now, but they're also still 4-0. So if you're winless and become this year's Chiefs and continue to do so just by winning games, I think they're going to be okay with that. But Denver's secondary now gives the Philadelphia Eagles wideouts, AJ Brown's probably going to get more frustrated. Devontae Smith as well. You might see a bit of Dallas Goedert over the middle of the field. Denver through the middle, not amazing, so he could be a target in this one. I think AJ Brown's going to be well covered up by Pat Surtain. They're able to stop T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Not comparing Jalen Hurts to Jake Browning whatsoever, but I think they're going to be able to do that. So it's all going to come down to obviously Hurts and Saquon in this one. They're going to need to get those chains moving, keep the Denver offense off the field. I think, especially the way Denver are playing right now, they're so good defensively, but they're also taking a lot of time with possession as well. Like, it's not really that quick offense that we're so once used to with them. they've had a lot of long drives, and they're not super comfortable, I guess, at running back. They do have J.K. Dobbins, who's a bit of a bruiser. Have R.J. Harvey as well, who's a bit more of a quicker back, third down back. And obviously have Bo Nix, someone that's happy to take off and run the ball. I think this is going to be a lower scoring game. Both teams handle possession very well, very good defensively too. These are usually the games that probably finish 35-30, but I think it's going to be the opposite in that. Touch on Tennessee, Arizona, the game that gets us started in the late window. Yay, what a start. Look, unless J.C. Latham is back for the Tennessee Titans, this is going to get pretty ugly because Arizona, as bad as what they've been offensively, have been very good defensively, and especially at home. So this could very well be Brian Callahan's last game on the sidelines because it's been pretty ugly as of right now for the Titans. And if you're a sack player prop punter, then there's every chance that Cam Ward gets sacked another 5 times in this game. I hope not. I need to have something to look forward to on a Monday morning other than work, obviously. So I hope we have some kind of life. Xavier Restrepo is still out in the streets. To just get him in for Cam Ward to give him some happiness, some joy. Because Cam Ward in that post-match press conference said the team was arse, and he's not wrong. But let the shackles loose. Don't punt the ball. Maybe have a game like that. Don't kick field goals. Just be aggressive. If we get stopped, we get stopped. Give us something to look forward to. Tampa Bay at Seattle. Very, very tough spot for Tampa. They're obviously dealing with a lot of injuries right now. Baker's playing a little bit hobbled too, and Seattle's obviously coming up a longer rest, playing that game on Thursday night in Arizona, a big division win for them. Seattle's going to want to keep winning within their conference. They're contending for the NFC West as well, alongside the Rams, and if you want to put the 49ers in that group too, Arizona kind of could be, but I've said it all along, I'm not high on this Arizona Cardinals team at all. So Seattle needs this one, especially at home. And I think it's going to be a pretty entertaining game of footy. Whenever Baker Mayfield's involved, that there's a chance there's going to be some points. But Seattle have been extremely, extremely good defensively. Extremely good. Tampa Bay, I've said it time and time again, their defensive line's given them all sorts of problems. So Kenny Walker and Zach Charbonnet may actually struggle, but that honestly needs to open things up for JSN. Cooper Kupp is still in this lineup too, not used as much. He was used a little bit more last week, but not as much. But JSN should literally light up this Tampa Bay secondary. This should be a 100-plus game from him. Darnold needs to be aggressive because if they're getting stopped on the run with Kenny Walker and Charbonnet, then Darnold's got to air this thing out, and you got to be prepared to do it against Tampa because you're not going to be winning too many games by only scoring 17 to 20 points. Baker's got too much in him for that. Detroit at Cincy, which would have been an incredibly good matchup going into the start of the season, will not be the case. But Detroit can't overlook them because they have a huge matchup next week. This can't be a look-ahead spot for Detroit. You've got to take care of business, win this game by 3 touchdowns, and put your boys in cotton wool. Go into next week. Cincy, if they haven't made a call right now, and I know they haven't, but honestly, if this is Jake Browning under center, then Detroit are winning this game by 2+ touchdowns. So I'm waiting until kickoff for this one to see if that is confirmed. If it's still Browning, this Detroit D-line is getting after a lot of guys as well. Aiden Hutchinson's been brilliant. Going up against arguably the worst offensive line in the league outside of Tennessee. Again, if you're a sack punter, get on after a couple of boys from Detroit because Jake Browning's going to be on his back for a lot of that game if he is the man under center. And, it's Wednesday. Clock's ticking. It looks like he's going to be there for another week. So, yeah, ugly. But, yeah, Washington Chargers is going to be an interesting one simply because we don't know who's going to be playing quarterback right now for Washington. I hope it's Mariota once again because I still think he's capable. We get, another Oregon v. Oregon matchup. Mariota up against Justin Herbert. And the Chargers are going to want to bounce back because they had a shocker last week against the Giants. This is a game that could also have plenty more points in this one too, but this is a watch this space to see who is under center for the Washington Commanders. So that one's going to be interesting. Sunday night footy, New England travel to Buffalo. This used to be Tom Brady running this division, and I think we all hated it. We're like, oh my God, the Patriots have got this thing so easy. Now it's the Bills, because the Bills are just that much better than everyone else. They're quite simply bored. They get a little bit of a test here in this one. The number of 7.5 you can get isn't the worst, because New England's coming off a big win, albeit against Carolina. But Drake May has been very, very good. They've got a little bit of a two-headed monster with Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson. Stephon Diggs returns back home, if you want to call it that, to Buffalo. I think this is a game that's going to have some points in it. 49.5 doesn't seem like a big enough total, especially if Buffalo's middle is still missing Matt Milano as well. Like, that's a big out. And Vrabes wants to get a little bit of revenge for his last visit to Buffalo, which was for Tennessee. I was in attendance, and it was awful. I had a great time. It was fun, because being amongst Bills fans is always fun. They're not like a Philadelphia Eagles fan who's going to hurl abuse at you all game and ask you what the hell you're doing here and throwing beer at you and all that. But I was sitting next to Buffalo fans who are actually buying me beers. So they're like, the fact that you are still here and sitting through your team getting beat by 40, here's another $20 freaking Bud Light. I ain't going to say no. So, atmosphere is going to be great. Sunday night footy, prime time, it's going to be awesome. Maybe we get to see how good Drake May really is, because this is a big test for him under the lights, going up against probably the MVP once again in Josh Allen. Jimmy Cook has been phenomenal this year. So it could be heavy ground game kind of for both teams. And you just hope the Bills don't get bored, but I think the Bills can get bored, because yes, they're a lot better than the Pats, but the Pats are still a lot better than the rest of their competition in that division, which is the Jets and the Dolphins. So this is a big game for the division nonetheless. Monday night footy, Kansas City at Jacksonville. It's a pretty ugly 2-2 up against an ugly 3-1. So Trevor Lawrence gets his chance on prime time, and the Jags did everything they possibly could to almost lose that game last week to the San Francisco 49ers with all the injuries they've got. They can't take their foot off the gas against KC. I would argue, though, that KC could potentially look ahead, and I would have a bigger argument if it wasn't on Monday Night Football, because they play the Detroit Lions next week on Sunday Night Football, which goes back to Detroit at Cincy. Same deal. You want to be well rested going into that match against the Chiefs. Don't have that look ahead spot. Take care of business early and sit out. Kansas City don't have the luxury of doing that, because they're facing a much tougher team in Jacksonville. Jacksonville's actually forcing a lot of turnovers too. Mahomes isn't a guy that usually gives the ball up willy-nilly, so they're going to have to work for this one. Could be a lower scoring game. In saying that, we'll hit on some college football before we move on to best bets in the NFL. College footy this week, obviously last week's card was huge. Oregon getting an enormous win against Penn State. Incredible, double overtime, but we got absolutely screwed on the under. 3-3 at halftime, goes into double overtime and goes over. This week though, I'm taking the under 41, Texas, Florida. Texas very, very good defensively, ditto Florida. And both teams' offensive output has not been good. And you see a total of 41 in college football. You're like, damn, that's low. But I still think that game probably finishes like 24-10. I'll take the over 55 in Vandy, Bama. And this is a bit of a revenge spot for Bama, especially playing at home. Everyone loves Diago Pavia for Vanderbilt. They're 5-0, absolutely flying and great to see. Do yourself a favour and watch that doco on Netflix, because I think it's any given Saturday. And Pavia is just a guy who doesn't really even look like a quarterback. For those that don't really know him, I watch a lot of college footy. He's a winner, and a guy that has completely changed the fortunes, I guess, of this Vanderbilt organisation or program. And he'll want to walk into Bama and knock them off and move to 6-0, and that could be enough to honestly get them into the playoffs. They got a tough schedule, obviously, but this is a big game. If you show you can compete against Bama, that's just as good to get them in as a 1-loss or a 2-loss, if Bama obviously run the table after that, than anything else. But I think Bama circled this game for quite some time, especially after last season. We'll go the under 54.5, Florida State, Miami. Florida State losing in bad fashion, Stormfield from Virginia. That was ridiculous. But They had a shocker there. Miami very, very good defensively. This could be a grind. Florida State need to get back into playoff contention. They need to get back to playing good defensive football. Did not do that against Virginia. Being a rivalry game and being back at Florida State, I think we get an under there. And I'll take Iowa State on the money line. You get plus 105, I believe it is, at Cincinnati. Big believer in Iowa State. Very, very well coached under Matty Campbell. So I'll go with them. All right, NFL best bets time. Let's do this. Best bets did go 2 and 3 last week. Hit, obviously, on our Monday Night Footy player prop parlay. Got pretty unlucky with a couple of them going, as always, the one leg short, which is tough, Jared Goff. But what do you do? Best bets last week, like I said, 2 and 3, which takes us to 7 and 10 overall in the season. Let's try and hit some winners this week. We'll take the Rams minus the 6.5 against the 49ers. I believe they finally get this done against the Niners at home. They need to. Niners, far too many injuries they're dealing with right now. The Rams just need to take care of business. Minnesota minus the 3.5 in London against the Browns. Again, they've been over there for a couple of weeks now. So this is a tough traveling spot for Cleveland. Not so much for Minnesota. Take care of business and head into the bye on the back of a win against a pretty average Cleveland team. Judkins could get busy on the ground, though, in this one, which could save them a bit. But I think Minnesota has far too much, and they'd hope that Van Ginkel is back in this contest. We'll take the under 41 in New Orleans Giants. I think this, especially now with no Malik Neighbours, the Giants could rely heavily on the run. This is Jackson Dart's first road game as well, so there could be plenty of nerves from him going into this one. The Saints haven't played all that bad, and I think this game could be pretty ugly and a bit of a grinded-out win for either team. So I'll take the under 41. We'll take 2 more overs to finish it off. Over 47 Jets Dallas. Justin Fields has come back, giving that offense a bit of life, and their defense has been struggling a little bit. And Dallas have just been able to score on everyone, bar the time that we needed them to score against the Chicago Bears. So that was a mess. And last but not least, we will take the over 49.5 in the Buffalo Bills New England Patriots game. I think there's plenty of points in that one. I think Drake May is good enough to give us 21. And the way things are going right now in Buffalo, they're putting 30 on everyone for fun. So I think that game has 50 plus in it pretty comfortably. All right, that is all for this week. Very much appreciate you all for tuning in. I'll be back again next week, but as is always the case, keep your eyes and ears peeled on Insta, TikTok, at Trash Talker D-Bork. I'll have plenty more plays on there. Enjoy your weekend, everyone.